The podcast that you are about to enjoy is part of the LOWTREE Studios podcast network. To enjoy more great podcasts like this one, visit lowtreestudios.com.
Wreck My Podcast!
Get on the highway to the danger zone with us this week, but just make sure it doesn't take your breath away or you may end up like Cougar. We discuss Top Gun this week and potentially wreck our 80s.
Wreck My Podcast!
Welcome to the Wreck My Podcast, where this week it looks and sounds a little different because I'm here with different guests. That's right. It's crazy. He's always in a target-rich environment. It's Chris.
Hi.
He feels the need for speed. It's Obert.
Hey there.
Hey, he could tell you, but then he'd have to kill you. It's Tud.
What up? It's Tud.
And I tried singing Lost That Lovin' Feelin', but never got the girl. I'm your host, Jordan. So, guys, you're from another podcast called Drinking Alone with Friends. Good friends of our show. We're good friends of your show. Tell us a little bit about your show so people know kind of what it is if they want to check it out.
Yeah, so...
Chris, take it away.
Chris, take it away. I'm Chris. So, yes, we're a podcast where three friends drink alone together, and my name's Chris. I think that's all I have to say, right?
No.
Oh, is there more? Do we do more than that? No. So, we all grew up on the same road in Connecticut, and about 2 years ago, give or take, two of us decided to just, Connecticut sucks, and left. So, we decided a little bit later that we missed drinking together. So we decided to do it alone with friends. So
the podcast was born.
Yeah, I love the concept where you guys are all over the country, yet you're drinking together, but you're alone in your houses. And you guys, you know a lot about beer. You guys have a lot, if not knowledge, quantity of beer on the podcast is there.
Or both.
Yeah, both. It's good because you guys have introduced me to breweries I have never heard of before that you can kind of seek out depending on what area of the nation you're in. So it's a lot of fun. So if you haven't checked them out, go check out Drinking Alone with Friends. I listen every week. I love it. I'm halfway through your newest podcast right now. So I heard about some protein shakes being done, and Chris is working out now and stuff. It's great
That's
fun.
Right.
Yeah, it's great fun.
I like to say that we did the Skype happy hour before it was cool. Before everybody was forced to do it from their houses.
You guys have been quarantining.
We were the original.
A long time now.
Trendsetters.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe it's like episode 100 is not that long from now. It's like 9 weeks away.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
You guys are real close. So you guys started not too long after we started because we only just hit 100 a few weeks back. So, we're right in there in that same grade. We're like seniors together. We're going to graduate together and everything. So I was listening to one of your podcasts and you guys brought up Top Gun. And that's when I reached out to you and I was like, you know what? I would love to talk about Top Gun with you guys because some of you sounded like you liked it. Some of you sounded like you never seen it. So I was like, this is a good eclectic group of people for our podcast to see how it goes. But before we talk about Top Gun, I want to give you guys the opportunity to do a little thing from your podcast where you tell us what beers you're drinking this week because I'm sure our audience loves beers as well. We talk about beer sometimes, so we'd love to know what you guys are drinking alone with us friends right now.
So,
okay.
You know what? So I'll kick this off.
Jetsons meets Flintstones here.
Just because I am there you go. Just because I am drinking, our brewery sponsor of the podcast, quote unquote.
Yes.
Labyrinth Brewing Company out of Manchester, Connecticut. I don't know. Yeah, unofficial or official. We'll leave that up to Adam whether or not he wants to make that official.
Yeah, they have not sent a cease and desist, so we're gonna keep saying it.
Yeah,
that's pretty much a thumbs up, right?
So I'm drinking a sour by them. It's a 5.8% ABV. It's called Sour Batch. It kind of tastes like a Sour Patch Kid. But I'm drinking a whole crowler of it. So as this podcast goes along progressively,
yes,
I will finish more and more of this podcast.
Well, I had a question. So a Sour Patch Kid, there's different flavors. What, like, it's just generic Sour Patch Kid or like a specific flavor?
This one,
straight from the crowler.
Right there.
Kind of tastes a little like the pink one.
Oh, okay, that's my favorite one. So
one.
I would like that.
Yeah, it's super bitter. It's sour. It's awesome. But yeah, definitely the pink one is always the best. Pink one's the best Starburst too. So
yeah,
agreed.
I'd fight anyone who disagreed.
And then it goes red, orange, yellow. Is that how it goes? It goes down the scale of the rainbow.
I think so. Yeah. I think orange and yellow are kind of tied for last in my mind.
Yeah, I was gonna say I might put yellow above orange. But
Okay.
I'm willing to.
Orange is so much better than yellow.
Yeah, well, I didn't like bananas or yellow things as a child. I couldn't watch bananas pajamas, whatever that was. So I always throw that yellow down to the bottom. I hate it. All right, so Chris, what are you drinking?
I hate bananas, so I can't eat anything lemon. It's just a thing I have.
Exactly.
So
Chris, what are you drinking?
So hang on. So Jordan, when's the next episode of Bananas and Pajamas coming out? When is the next
episode of Bananas and Pajamas? Man, we had to, I'll tell you what, go to our Patreon and give us $20 and we'll do Bananas and Pajamas just for that person.
Wow.
Their own episode. It won't even be released. It'll just go straight to their inbox. Chris, what are you drinking over there?
All right, so I have a hazy IPA from Southern Range Brewing Company. Which is here in Monroe, North Carolina, and it's Ice Cubes a Pimp. So it's got a little blimp on there. I don't know why there's a blimp. I'm sure there's an inside joke there. It's a pimp blimp. That's Ice Cubes. Hazy Boy. Which is
By the way, can I point out the fact that you said, do you pronounce Monroe very weird? Just to make fun of your Southern accent.
I didn't hear that as a weird pronunciation.
He said Monroe, and I was
Monroe?
Like, you mean Monroe?
Monroe?
Monroe. Okay. Listen, I'm working. I'm trying to polish my Southern accent. It's slowly starting to develop, but if you listen to episode 1 and then move your way forward, you'll notice.
Make a time lapse audio of it.
Yeah, just take the beginning portion of our podcast from each episode.
Take a 1/10 of a second clip of each one.
Oh boy. So hazy IPA. It's pretty delicious. I've been enjoying it already.
And hazies are that new craze. People love that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, also known as a New England IPA. We talk about it on the latest
debate
episode
on the podcast every week.
Yeah.
About whether or not it's synonymous.
Breweries.
Yeah, well, because New England IPAs are these hazy boys right here, which are generally semi-bitter, but also juicy, sweet, delicious awesomeness. But now they're starting to call them juicy IPAs or something like that because they don't want to pay homage to where they were born, which is up in New England.
Well, I think hazy is the rectangle and New England IPA is the square that fits inside the rectangle. So all New England IPAs are hazy, but not all hazies are New England style.
I like that.
Don't give credence to this uproaring of changing.
Oh, he's a Montanan.
Well, I've definitely had some hazies that are not super juicy, that don't meet my New England IPA standards.
But this is a hazy that is juicy, so I don't know.
So that's we do this every week.
Yeah,
we're getting sidetracked.
Tune into their podcast to hear the same argument.
Yeah. Tune in every week. No, it's very good beer though. Southern Range does really good stuff. They've been on the podcast before. And when you have a beer called Ice Cubes a Pimp, you just can't not get it. So
I love the names that breweries are coming up with now. There's a lot of great names in there.
Great names and great label art.
Yes, the can art is so good. All right, Obert, save the best for last. What are you drinking?
That's right. Well, it's one of the hottest days of the year so far here in Montana. It was probably upper 70s, maybe 79 today.
Oh,
I
jeez.
just got back from taking the dog for a walk, so I decided to crack open a nice cold hard seltzer this week.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this is from DraftWorks. I think it's their spin-off seltzer company called Waterworks. This is the Mountain Berry flavor. Very fun can. On our podcast, we rate all of our seltzers on a scale of 0 to 100. where
Right.
0 is water and 100 is soda. So
Nice.
this is definitely in the 80s for me. But just something a little light to talk about Top Gun with.
Yeah, because if there's one word synonymous with Top Gun, it's light.
Exactly.
Cool. I won't bore you with what I'm drinking. I'm drinking non-hard sparkling water that's black cherry flavored because I forgot to bring a beer and I'm at work and all I had was a sparkling water in the fridge.
Well, I
So-
see that fridge right behind you. Just reach back there and grab one of those beers out of there.
Where's a beer back here? I don't see a beer back
Right-
here.
Right there in that invisible fridge. Just pull it
Oh
out.
man, I didn't even see it there. No, I
I think
wish.
he's pointing
I
to
wish.
the hand hand sanitizer on the desk.
Yes, I mean I can get the same buzz going with it. It just doesn't taste as good.
Right.
As long as
All
you're
right.
drinking something, that's all.
Yeah,
that counts.
that's right. I figured I'll just drink this. It'll be good. It looks like I should have said, hard Dasani seltzer. That's what I'm drinking. So okay, Top Gun, guys. I want to get to know a little bit about where you stand with Top Gun. Now, Tud, have you seen Top Gun before?
Of course.
When was the last time you've seen it?
Yesterday.
But I mean before this, before we watched it.
I think I watched it probably about 3 or 4 years ago. My wife had never seen it before, so I made her sit down and watch it. Obviously, it was probably right around the time that I heard that Top Gun 2 was coming out in 2020. I was like, hey, let's get prepared because we got to watch this movie in the movie theater because I want to hear the jets. I want to hear the loud Kenny Loggins music coming in from the back.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to be ready.
Yes. Okay. So, and I'm guessing that you're a fan of this then by the way you're speaking about it.
I am a huge fan of Top Gun.
Huge fan. Okay. Obert, had you seen this before?
I had. Last time I saw this movie was probably 10 to 12 years ago in bits and pieces on USA TV because
Okay.
I feel like that's where you end up seeing Top Gun.
Yeah. Yeah. So was this your first time seeing it from start to finish then?
Probably not, but
Okay.
the first time in a very, very long time.
Okay. And then Chris, you hadn't seen this movie before.
That is correct.
So
Bob.
this was your first time experienced Top Gun.
Yes, I'd never seen Top Gun before. A couple nights ago when I watched it.
Okay. So the last time and the first time I had seen this movie since watching it for this podcast was in 2011. So I had never watched this movie growing up. I saw it once I graduated college and I moved out. And when you move out and you're kind of bored all the time and you don't have college anymore, you watch a lot of movies. So I ended up watching Top Gun. Didn't watch it again until this podcast. Now,
Does it hold up?
So here's the thing. I didn't really like it when I watched it in 2011. Consistency is my name because I was still not the biggest fan of this movie. And I'll tell you why as we get into it. But we learned that Tud likes it. Obert, do you like this movie?
I'm giving it a thumbs halfway, neither
Okay.
up nor down. It was okay. I think it has more hype than it deserves.
Okay, and then Chris, first time watching ever. How did you feel about this movie?
It was okay. I mean, I don't know. For some reason, I was talking to my wife, and I actually wrote down what I know about Top Gun, what I knew about Top Gun right before I watched it.
Uh-huh.
And I said, Tom Cruise is a pilot. There's volleyball or something, muscles and stuff. He's the best gunner? ? I don't know anything. So that was literally what I knew.
It's not bad. It's a
That's
good
actually pretty
baseline.
accurate of the movie. I mean, you got all the big bullet points in there of what's happening in this movie. Okay.
But it was okay. I mean, I think it's just like a typical 80s movie. I didn't. I think we're gonna get into it. I didn't quite understand why it's a thing.
Uh-huh.
I don't
Okay,
know. But we can talk about that.
We'll explain this because that's one of my biggest gripes with the film is it's a very hard film to follow. I feel like the
Yeah.
plot isn't spelled out for you very well. I feel like they expect you to know the terminology that flight instructors and jet users have, And also, when they filmed the jets actually flying, I feel like for the time, maybe it was super cool because it was like, oh, we never seen jets in action like this before. It's 1986. Whoa. Now you watch it and you're like, I feel like some dad was standing out there with a camcorder zoomed in trying to catch a plane flying by on half the shots. So I'm like, when I watched the Top Gun Maverick trailer, I'm like, this movie is going to make it look amazing because the shots in that movie look so good compared to this one. So that's definitely
fair.
one of the
every
biggest
cut
gripes.
is about 1 second long in the action scenes.
Yeah. It's very hard to follow. Now, yeah, go for it, Ted.
Ted, so Ted, you're the only one who's going to rally and defend this movie.
Tell us what you love about this movie.
Right. So I should point out the fact that I saw this as a kid.
Uh-huh.
The first time I ever saw it, I was probably like 7, 8, somewhere around there. You have to think about it in the context of when it came out. So it came out in 1986. People didn't know, like, it's not like it's not like they could just turn on CNN today and just see, pictures taken from newscasters of planes taking off of aircraft carriers and landing and all that. This was revolutionary for its time. And as a 7 or 8 year old, when you're growing up, you think planes are cool. It's a movie about planes. There's a lot of stuff blowing up. It's a really cool movie. I can see it from your standpoint now, being an adult, but back when I have a soft spot for this because back when I was growing up, being into these types of things, it was really cool. And I do get what you're saying that it looks like somebody shot it with a camcorder now. But
isn't that the whole conceit of the Wreck My podcast format? Is that we examine these things with our adult eyes?
Yes, but here I will say your defense does help put things into context here, because yes, Wreck My podcast, we're all about wrecking your nostalgia. So the things you liked as a kid, sorry, you listen to us, we're probably gonna poop all over it. But what you're saying is, this was the first of its time. Like, the Navy actually used this movie as recruiting videos to get people stoked about it because you'd never seen this before, and it was revolutionary. Now, with our freaking Marvel movies and Infinity War and whatnot, you look at this movie and you go, well, it could have been done better. But in 1986, I mean, what else were they doing? I mean, you had Star Wars, which is essentially this movie in space, or if you want to say this movie is Star Wars on Earth, you could go either way. But, there weren't a lot of good video footage of dogfighting that was realistic, and they took a chance to do that. They spent a lot of money to do that. The fuel and the missiles cost tons of money to do all this, but they did it, and here it is, and it does, I would say it almost has a cult following, because I know a guy out here, and he's in the film industry, and this is still one of his favorite movies. From a film standpoint, I would not say this movie is great. Yet this guy in the industry loves this movie. So it obviously,
I like that guy.
Yeah, it goes above the idea of what's good and bad and what's warm and fuzzy, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I could see, if you're talking U.S. military movies, I could see how this would make a lot of top 5 lists, maybe a lot of top 3 lists.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not very accurate because the patches were all incorrect that they're wearing. A lot of the terminology they use is actually incorrect as well. Even though they're using the right words, they're using them in the wrong contexts. And as a fun fact here, a little early on before our fun fact segment, if you quote this movie in real Top Gun, because Top Gun is an actual program, it's a real program. If you quote this movie, you get in trouble. You get like deducted 5 points or something. So you're not allowed to quote this movie in actual Top Gun.
Oh, I would be quoting it all the time. I'd be that guy who'd be like, every day I'm getting a point taken away from me.
Yeah, how can you not quote it, though, if you're, like, in Top Gun? It's crazy. Okay, so
every time I would take off, I'd be like, I feel the need for speed. I just make my guy say it behind me.
Every time. Well, okay, guy behind you. Here's a point I brought up while watching this. What does the guy behind you do? It feels like he's
like
just
a rear
chilling.
mirror.
Yeah, he's just chilling.
I know. Well, so at one point they talk about the RIO, and I Googled it, and that's that person's title. But if this was the 80s where Google didn't exist, I would have no idea what an RIO is. Or
but what do you know what that
like
stood
rear
for?
interior officer?
Is that what
I
it
think
stood
it's
for?
radar intelligence or something like that. They're the ones who are...
So they're like
radar
radar
intercept officer.
I see. So they're like looking at the
was.
dials. So they're looking at the dials and telling you what's going on, so you don't have to.
I guess so. I didn't.
All right.
I just looked at. I just said RIO, and then I got a bunch of ads to go to Rio, and then I did RIO military abbreviation. So I didn't. I was trying to pay attention to the movie, but
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
what is an
I just
RIO?
thought
And I'm
watching.
like,
Yeah, I
oh,
thought watching that. I was like,
that was
that's
Goose.
Yeah, I was like, Goose has the easiest job because he's just kind of chilling right now. Like, what is he actually doing?
He's got the hardest part because like he's got to like turn around and stuff. Part of me wondered like, we saw this from Star Wars, and I know that the F-16s were built after Star Wars came out. Why didn't they turn the seat around?
Yeah,
and make
right?
that guy face the back of the plane.
And give him a tow cable. And then you take down some big artillery.
Right. That was actually the first note I took. Was it said it reminds me of the Star Wars cockpit scenes, and I heard that was they based all of those scenes on old dogfight footage or from like World War II movies.
Yeah, and you know what's so funny? Okay, so George Lucas makes Star Wars that's pretty much dogfighting in space, and he takes real footage from World War II and makes it amazing. Years later, George Lucas makes Red Tails, which is real dogfighting with dubstep music on Earth, and it looks way worse than Star Wars. I'm like, how did it not translate? Oh, man. All right. Another thing I noticed here is that it's yet another movie Tom Cruise has to wear platform shoes because he's definitely not that tall in real life.
I thought he wasn't that tall, but I don't know actors very well, so I was like, he looks taller than I think he is.
No, he's shorter than me, and I am almost short enough I should not be able to be married. So he's a pretty short guy.
And I didn't think he looked that tall in the movie. I mean, he was significantly shorter than Val Kilmer. He was almost even shorter than the chick.
Yeah, well, he is shorter than the chick in real life, Charlie. They had to give him, I think, 4 inches on platforms to get him to be slightly higher than her. So
4 inches to be slightly higher.
Yes. So, yes, he is very, very short. Tom Cruise's face and mouth looked a little weird to me in this movie. It was almost like he had some type of, like, surgery done later in the 80s, and then that's how we know him, because, I don't know, the way he smiled looked odd to me. Did anyone else feel that way?
The whole time I was trying to guess how old he was in this movie, because I was trying to figure out if this was where in his filmography this stood.
So this is pretty early
I
on.
didn't notice that he looked any unusual, except for he has the
so
one
that must have
center
just been
tooth.
me. Yeah.
So I went back to look at this, and this is his second real movie. So his first movie was Risky Business, which made him a star.
Right.
And then this was the next follow up to that. He had a movie in between that I had never heard of, but this was the next big star. So I just kind of chalked up the fact that he looked different because I figured, well, he's probably 22.
Yeah, but I mean, even in Risky Business, he looked. It's almost like he was doing this thing with his mouth that. Yeah, it's almost like he didn't want to open his mouth fully every time he would smile. It's almost like he was holding back a little bit, and I felt like it was just a weird choice to do that. So I don't know.
Show as much teeth without showing your canines as possible.
Yeah, it's like that.
Right.
That was his direction.
I think that might just be his face.
It could be.
That's his
I don't know.
original face.
I mean,
That's his face.
I like to think that I'm a connoisseur of Tom Cruise's face, but, this one threw me for a loop over here. So another thing that's pretty reminiscent of 80s movies in general that I notice all the time going back and watching 80s movies is that they really like to milk the music licensing budget. Because you hear about the same 3 songs through the whole movie.
I'm so ready for this.
It's just so, seriously, there was a 30-minute span, I feel like, where all it played was Take My Breath Away.
I
That's
literally
30
had
minutes.
that
That's
in my
exactly
notes.
what I told Tut.
I said,
Yeah.
Take My Breath Away, play for 20 minutes.
Yeah. Come
Tut
on.
was like, man, you have to listen to the soundtrack. And I was like, dude, there's 4 songs in the movie.
So there are 12 songs in the soundtrack. They're all in the movie. But the first 4 songs in the soundtrack are the only songs you need to listen to.
And are those 4 then? So it's Take My Breath Away. It's Danger Zone. Is it the theme
Correct.
that they play during the takeoff at the beginning?
No, that's song number 8.
Okay, so
there's
that, it's Great Balls of Fire probably, right? Is that in there?
Nope.
No?
Nope. Let me pull it up.
I'm trying to think what a Love and Feelin', was that on it? I don't think that was on the original soundtrack. I think that came later.
So you had Take My Breath Away, Danger Zone, Mighty Wings, which is the Cheap Trick song from the movie, and then Playing with the Boys.
Oh, yes. How could I forget the iconic volleyball scene with Playing with the Boys?
Right.
Come on.
Right. That's the only songs you need. And then the fifth one is Lead Me On by Tina Marie.
Tina Marie. That's funny. I have a friend whose name is Tina Marie. I don't know this Tina Marie, but I know the other Tina Marie.
Is her name spelled Teena?
Oh, no, it's Tina. So I guess I don't know. I don't know it phonetically correct. So also, I never realized the first time watching this, spoiler right now if you've never seen this movie, but why are you listening if not? There was so much foreshadowing that Goose was going to die from like the beginning of the movie on.
Okay, so I will say that got me. Like, I was like, oh no, not Goose. Like, and my wife was like, I can't believe you didn't know Goose died. She was like flabbergasted.
Did you have the same? Well, did you have the same thought I did? Like, I didn't know either the first time I watched this movie almost 10 years ago. I thought when it happened, I was like, oh, that's a bummer. He got hurt and probably can't be his partner now anymore, like can't fly anymore. And then they just nonchalantly come out and be like, Goose is dead. Like, what?
Yeah. I know.
No, actually, I kind of figured he was dead because he like hit that, but I don't understand how it happened because I thought the thing flew off and then he ejected into the thing. Is that what?
Yeah, that's what.
Tom Cruise even warns
it didn't
him.
fly off enough, or it did, and it spun back. The plane spun back around so fast that it hit it.
It's supposed to be a malfunction, and what I was reading, it was like a malfunction cockpit ejection. Because they didn't want it to be like user error or anything like that to scare people away. It was like a this never happens kind of thing, that happened. Which my biggest problem with this movie, another big problem I have with this movie is how just they kind of throw Goose away. Like, they talk about him like they're like, oh yeah, Goose died. Like, this wasn't a completely unavoidable way he died. It was a training simulation that it's like, you shouldn't be dying. You weren't fighting anyone. Like, how is this death justified?
Yeah, they talk about the jet wash, and it's like, there's nothing you could have done to avoid the jet wash.
But then he does it again later in the movie.
When they were spiraling out of control, that's why the ejection doesn't work, because when you're normally flying, you can eject fine, but when they were like in that crazy spiral, the ejection, they hit the cockpit roof.
Yeah.
I would say that there wasn't enough blame put on Iceman for not getting the hell out of the way when he was trying to take the shot. Because had he have moved earlier, they wouldn't have gone into that spin. Because Tom Cruise is, he was trying to get closer.
Well, but then
to take the shot to shoot around him. Did
Tom Cruise have to get that close? Like,
Well, no, because he's a maverick. He's.
Well, I mean, listen, that doesn't open a court of law. It did in this movie, but if you're like, hey, I was tailgating this guy and I bumped into him, that's your fault.
I think Iceman should have gotten a little bit more in trouble saying, hey, in proper battle, if your wingman is saying, I've got the shot, move, get the hell out of the way.
Yeah,
but they're all cocky. They all want to be the top gun.
They do want to be that Top Gun. The thing I noticed, too, I thought he said break right, and then Iceman broke left. So I think Iceman actually went the wrong way, too, which is what caused it. That when they're talking to each other, Maverick was thinking he's going to go one way, which is why he was in the jet wash stream, because he was in the wrong place, assuming Iceman was going to go the other way. So I think you're right. I think Iceman is kind of to blame for this, and he just gets off scot-free because he's Batman.
I was a little confused because I thought Maverick would get, like, after it all happened and he was whatever, he would like confront him and be like, dude, I told you to get out of the way, but that never happened. He was just like, oh, I guess we're friends, let's hug and kiss and stuff.
It should have happened. I feel like that's the biggest downfall of the movie.
Yeah, there should have been a lot more done with Goose's death affecting people, and there should have been a fight break out between them. It didn't feel emotional enough. It felt like fake emotion.
Right, and then all of a sudden he broke up with his girlfriend because he didn't want to open up with her the same day that Goose died. I was like, that's kind of weird, and she's moving, and how do we get, like 6 months passed, and nobody said boo.
Yeah, I don't know. This movie, I feel like this movie, too, the whole love interest in it was kind of an afterthought, in my opinion. Like, I feel like they kind of put that in there just to be like, hey, some girls might want to see this movie.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I thought
It was the 80s, man.
Yeah.
right. One thing I noticed about that was the pickup move. He goes and sings, the iconic scene. He does the "You've Lost That Love and Feeling," and he somehow, I think maybe because they're all pilots, but he somehow has 20 wingmen who all jump in on the song with him.
Yeah.
I have notes. Cringeworthy karaoke. How many times has this worked?
I mean, it's a numbers game, guys.
I guess it's true.
And if you look back at that scene, even though he had just had that little like tiff with Iceman's singing along in that
Oh, really?
move. Oh yeah, he's like the third guy to the left of the screen. So on Tom Cruise's right, he's like the third guy in, and he's singing along in that scene, which I found really weird.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. Hey, I got a question for you. Do I sound any different right now?
Yes.
I realized I never turned my microphone on. I was using my computer microphone. So sorry about that, listeners. If it
Oops.
sounded weird at the beginning,
shit.
that's my fault. All right, start
now
it
we
all
have the
over,
smooth,
guys.
sultry
Welcome to
Jordan
Wreck My
voice.
Podcast right now.
I'm the target guy.
All right. The last thing I noticed about this was that Tom Cruise is pretty much an incel. Maverick is an incel in this movie. Before that was a term, it's pretty blatant. So there's a lot of cringy moments in here where it's like,
For sure.
the you need to love me moments kind of thing. But anyway,
Well,
let's
I
move
don't know
into.
I don't know if you have a segment on your show titled "Things That Wouldn't Fly in 2020," but I have written in all caps. He follows her into the ladies' room.
Yes,
I had that too.
100% would not
go?
fly these days. No.
Just goes into ladies' room? Question mark.
Also,
I also wrote down the Bud Heavy product placement. There was a lot of that. But
yes.
There was a lot of that.
There was a lot. I feel like a good chunk of this movie would not have flown today. So no pun intended. But it's just like when movies are done in the 80s, it's such a product of its time. There's very few that you can watch now and not be like, yep, that's cringy, that's cringy, that's cringy. So even the beloved films like Back to the Future and Ghostbusters, they have their cringe moments in them.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
So let me tell you guys a little bit about the movie here, just the info on it. So it came out May 16th, 1986. It had only a $15 million budget, which is pretty low for what I assumed what this movie would do. But I guess in the 80s that was high. And
They got all that, and they got all those planes for $15 million.
I think the government paid quite
Yeah,
a
that's
bit,
my
like
guess.
let them have it because they wanted to use it as recruiting videos. And then it grossed $356 million worldwide, so it made a good chunk of its money back. Now, critic score on this on Rotten Tomatoes is 54%. It's pretty low, but audience score is 83. So this is definitely one of those successes that people like it more than the critics, which is okay. I feel like that's a lot of movies, I think that Star Wars might have been that way when it first came out. I think it didn't get a great critical response, but the fans loved it so much. So, there's properties out there like that. I really liked that it was filmed almost all in San Diego and Oceanside because being from California, I go there a lot, so it was kind of cool to see those places. It was produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, brought us great things like Pirates of the Caribbean and other movies. I feel like
and CSI, I believe, right?
yeah, so Bruckheimer is pretty much the Michael Bay of production. So Michael Bay produces things that directs things that Jerry Bruckheimer would produce. That's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, it's funny when I was
I
reading
was
the
shocked-
list of Bruckheimer productions, they all seem like I'm like, oh, I could definitely see the common theme in all of these.
Yes, 100%. And speaking of directors, Tony Scott directed this. Now that's Ridley Scott's brother, and Tony Scott was a little bit less. Ridley Scott was more heady filmmaking, where Tony Scott was more in-your-face filmmaking. So he did like Days of Thunder, Enemy of the State, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, as well as he directed the Danger Zone music video.
I was actually going to draw comparisons between this and Days of Thunder, because I know that they're both Tom Cruise movies. And
Yes.
saw them both when I was basically in the same week. I think I saw them in my lifetime.
Yeah, and they're directed, and they're very similar movies. One with cars, one with
Very
jets.
similar.
That's kind of what
It's almost like Tom Cruise was like, "Hey, let's do this with cars now, guys."
Yeah, exactly. He wanted to get all the vehicles. So Tom Cruise, we've been talking about, he plays the main character of Maverick. Oh, I forgot to mention, the writers of this movie are the same guys who wrote Turner and Hooch and the 1990s Dick and Tracy. Or not Dick and Tracy, Dick Tracy. No and. Dick Tracy, the 1990s remake of it. So those are cool guys. But yeah, Tom Cruise plays Maverick. Everyone knows who he is. I don't need to tell you what other films he was in. Kelly McGillis, she plays Charlie, his love interest. I'm not going to tell you what other movies she's in because I don't know any of them. This was the only movie that I knew her from. Val Kilmer plays Iceman. That's right, Batman Forever Batman, Val Kilmer in this movie. Anthony Edwards plays Goose. He's from Revenge of the Nerds, Zodiac, and was a main character on ER for the whole run of ER. Yeah.
That's where he's from.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's bald now then, right?
He's what?
He's partly bald.
Yeah,
balding.
he's balding. Uh-huh. Yeah. In ER he is, yes.
That's okay. This, you know what? We're connecting dots here.
Exactly.
I used to watch ER all the time.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do with this podcast. We help you relive all these things. So Tom Skerritt played Viper. I wanted to bring him up because one of my favorite movies, Alien. He plays Dallas in Alien. And I love seeing Tom Skerritt show up and stuff. He's great. I love that guy. Michael Ironside played Jester, another 80s icon. Starship Troopers, Total Recall. This guy is awesome in the 80s. I love Michael Ironside. And then, go for it.
One thing about Michael Ironside, too, which I find fascinating, for anybody who's ever played the Tom Clancy Splinter Cell games,
yep,
he is the voice of Sam Fisher for the first 4 or 5 games. Up until the most recent one, he was the voice of Sam Fisher, to the point where they were talking about making a movie and they wanted him to be Sam Fisher, but the movie never came about, I guess.
I remember that back in the early 2000s, and I wanted that so bad. Splinter Cell was such a good game. I loved that game so much. So good call. Good pull out. I like that. You know who I didn't realize was in this movie is Tim Robbins. Now, do you guys know who Tim Robbins is?
Yes.
Okay, he's Andy, or is that his name? Andy Dufresne from Shawshank Redemption?
From Shawshank.
Yeah.
And then he's also in Mystic River with Kevin Bacon and Sean Penn.
One of those shots.
I never watched that movie.
Oh, it's a great movie. But yeah, Tim Robbins was in this. He played Merlin, the guy who sits behind Maverick in the end scene.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not see his face the whole movie, so I had no idea. And then Meg Ryan shows up for 2 minutes
that was a surprise
in this movie.
for me.
Yeah. She's Goose's wife, so that was random.
Oh
to see
yeah,
her.
Dana pointed that out. She was like, I thought that was Meg Ryan.
Yeah, so random. Yeah, she had some mail, so she had to come get it, and she was sleepless up there in Seattle. So guys, this is the portion of the podcast where I'm going to explain the movie to you. Oh yes, it's time for Jordan to explain the movie quickly. Jets, missile jets. That's the movie explained by me. I forgot volleyball.
I really like the missile
volleyball jets.
Yeah, you did forget the volleyball.
I think you missed death.
Yeah, and death.
Sadness.
A little bit of death. Just a little bit.
Of death.
Yeah. So, let's break down the plot now. Let's get into the plot and talk about this thing step by step. What we noticed in it. This is the plot breakdown. So we start off with some words, because every great movie starts off with some words on the screen that let us know that Top Gun is a place where the best pilots around get together and prove they're the best pilots around. That's fun. Then we get Flight Deck Danger Zone, is what I call it, the opening sequence where flight deck jets shooting off to Danger Zone. It's actually cool. I really like that scene with the sun setting in the background. I read that when the crew was there filming, the captain had the ship turned the wrong way, and the sun was not setting in the distance of where they needed to film. So Tony Scott said, hey, we need to flip the ship around. And the captain said, well, it'll cost you $25,000 to flip this ship around. And he wrote him a check for $25,000 right there, slapped it on the desk, and said, get this thing turned around.
Holy shit.
That's crazy. That is crazy. We learned that Maverick is an ace pilot who doesn't follow the rules, and then some MiGs come around. I guess those are like bogies or something, or is that a plane?
Those are Russian jets.
Yeah,
So
Russia.
the Russian. So
Yeah, they don't want to
So I
say
had to-
Russia because it was the Cold War still.
But those are the
Yeah, I had to look this
AK-47s
up
of the
to-
sky.
Yeah.
I had to look this up to know what was going on during this time, and the Cold War doesn't end until 1991.
Yep.
So for it to, I was like, well, this is kind of like a weird time because like we're not at war with Russia anymore. So I was wondering why it was such a Russian, like anti-Russian thing. Makes a lot of sense given 1986. So I definitely had to
Yes.
look that up and research that a little bit.
Yes, exactly. So they didn't want to say too much. We learned that Maverick's going to Top Gun training because the guy who was supposed to go in front of him ended up losing his cool. Cougar lost all his cool up there. So now Maverick and Goose get to go. I was a little confused because this is what happened. So Cougar is up there, Maverick's up there. Cougar has like an anxiety attack, so Maverick has to go back and kind of guide him in. Now, Maverick is about to land and then decides, I'm not going to land. I'm going to go back up and help my buddy. But he says, we're running on vapor right now. We're almost out of gas. So can Maverick just create gas out of nowhere? Because that's kind of a glaring plot hole right there of like, how did he make it if he's running out of gas that bad?
Well, when the tank's on empty, you still have like,
Right.
a little bit left.
Yeah,
the tank
Yeah,
stays on
when the
empty
light
forever.
comes on,
Yeah,
you're out
exactly.
of gas.
You can run on E for a good 30 miles. You're fine.
Yeah.
There was a whole Seinfeld episode about this. How
Yes.
far can you push it on E?
So there you go. That must be how it worked. So now they're at Top Gun. They go out drinking the first night, and Maverick pulls a cringy flirt with a girl at a bar. And the next morning we find out, and this is when we were talking about he goes into the bathroom and everything. And next morning we find out this girl, Charlie, is actually an instructor from the Pentagon.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
I said twist, lady is the thing.
Yes, lady is the thing.
That was my note.
I love it. I love it.
Also, there are a lot of aviators.
There
so
are.
many aviators.
Which is funny that these guys, so Top Gun are the top aviators in the Navy, which is the sea. But what's the Air Force equivalent of this? Because is this like big fish, little pond? Like, you guys are the Top Gun of the Navy, but if you go up against the Air Force, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I was trying to figure that out too.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I don't know. I've never been in the military, so I have no idea how the branches work.
The Air Force is more of like like the drone people, maybe.
Okay. And like maybe helicopters and whatnot.
I think I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
I
making
think
shit up.
the
as we
U.S.
go.
Navy has the second largest air force in the world after the U.S. Air Force.
Oh, okay. The Air Force is just all the Boeing 737s and all that. They're classified in there too.
I guess so.
They're like the B-52 bombers and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think if I learned anything from Independence Day, you have to go to the Air Force to become an astronaut.
Mm. Well, actually, a few people from Top Gun have become astronauts.
IRL?
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah, IRL. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, snap. Okay, never mind.
Yep. All right.
Anybody could be an astronaut.
Yeah, anyone. I could be an astronaut. I mean, if Rocket Man taught me anything.
Oh my god, I love that. I love that movie.
All right.
That movie I've seen many times.
Yeah, great. You and Krager on the podcast love that movie. All right, so now we get more flying montages, more of Maverick getting in trouble because that's just a thing that keeps happening. And now we have some time for some. Oh, you had a question, Chris?
I want to talk about that.
Yes.
I don't know which time this is, but Maverick keeps getting in trouble because he's reckless and he does this, even though he passes all the courses and does all the things right and all this stuff. Where like they're like, oh, you're disqualified because you didn't follow this rule and this, that, and the other thing. But like, this is gonna save us the $30 million aircraft and blah blah blah. But I'm like, he's one of like two teams that didn't wreck an aircraft. Like, how are you going to get mad at him?
Well, I think they get mad too because he keeps doing the flybys and stuff like that. Like he's just kind of a jerk.
That was definitely a part of it too. Yeah. But also they were like, "Oh, you got to follow these rules." And I'm like, "But everybody else, why everybody else wrecked a $30 million aircraft?" So, I don't know.
But they were following the rules. If you do it following the rules, it's fine.
That's like the first rule of being in the military.
Yeah. I will say that I thought Jester was a little bit of a wimp for diving below 10,000 feet to avoid losing to Maverick the first time.
That is also a good point.
Not to let him get by, Maverick chased him, which got him in trouble, but that's all. Jester should have been yelled at just as easily.
No, but Jester was doing that to prove a point that the guy can't not go after someone.
Right.
I must have missed that.
Like that was the whole
thing.
thing.
It's understated. It's not really like that's in the office scene after when he's like saying he's just like his father.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is fine if you want to prove a point, but at the same time, if you're engaging in a combat drill, you can't then. Like, if you're in a wrestling match, you can't jump out of the ring and be like, oh, I'm going to jump back in now and tackle you. That's illegal. I'm talking like real wrestling, not professional wrestling.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, you can totally do that.
Different wrestling than I am.
Yeah, you can hit people with a chair. You spray green mist on people. You can actually kill people in a coffin match. It's the Wild West out there in wrestling.
It's just, there's rules, you got to follow them, and Jester broke them, so Maverick should have been okay to break them.
I don't know. Again, a lot of this movie, the problems with it is they just don't explain things enough. You kind of have to draw your own conclusions on stuff. And, that's okay, but not all of us are sitting there with the Top Gun encyclopedia trying to figure this out. So next we get some volleyball. That's right. All the boys got to play some volleyball. This scene was actually added later in the movie because they wanted a scene with all the guys muscular with their shirts off and stuff. So I don't know if this was in the script originally or not, but it was definitely like a production add-on after the fact.
You mean with Tom Cruise flexing and looking at the time on his watch?
Exactly.
Meanwhile, he's punching every muscle in his body to do it?
Exactly. He's like, this Rolex is real nice. Hashtag not a sponsor. So then we move to Maverick goes out with Charlie. They have a little date at her house, even though it's forbidden love. And that's when we start getting the dun, 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 dun. And we get that for the next 20 to 30 minutes. So bad. And we also find out that Maverick's dad disappeared in a classified mission or something at this point as well. And then they kind of just nonchalantly be like, yeah, it's classified, but it's just because he was cool and took down some people and saved some lives. And that's why it's classified. I'm like, well, that's not cool. I was hoping that it was going to be a thing like he was chasing an alien and then his ship went down and he turned into Captain Marvel.
Well, they did say he was on the wrong side of a line on a map. I think he was like in Vietnam and actually in Cambodia or something like that.
Yeah. But it's just so like, again, they just nonchalantly like tell you these things in this movie. It's kind of like, that's it? That's what it was? Like the buildup did not pay off for that. We get also, classic 80s love stuff here. The Charlie angrily tells Maverick she loves him, the I love you while I'm mad at you moment kind of thing. It's so bad. And then, so the scene where they're kissing and it's like the silhouette and all that was actually added.
The love scene, the blue love scene.
The love scene. It was added post-production. And this love scene cracked me up because while they're trying to kiss, my wife and I were watching this movie and we're like, this is the most awkward kiss ever. It looks like two bulls trying not to touch each other but get as close as they can. That's what it looked like. I'm like, what is this?
I will say, if you watch that scene closely, this really stuck out to me. Tom Cruise literally like sticks his tongue out at one point and goes like a frog.
Yeah.
But with his mouth open.
It was weird. It was weird. It was weird stuff going on in that scene. I did not like that scene one bit. Next, Maverick loses one of the competitions because of his his arrogance. So he's starting to kind of get a little bit like, I got to work harder. He's pushing the envelope a little bit more. Then they go to some seedy bar and sing Great Balls of Fire. I wanted to bring this up because I've actually been to that bar before. It's a barbecue place. It's called Kansas City Barbecue down on the waterfront in San Diego across from the Hyatt. And I work at that Hyatt quite a bit. And I always would walk over there and get barbecue, and it has a plaque in there that says the seedy bar scene from Top Gun was filmed here.
Wait, I didn't think it
awesome.
was that seedy of a bar.
It's really not. It's really not.
Well, like the kid is there, right?
Yeah.
Goose's son is in the bar sitting at the piano. So I didn't think it was like, I thought it was a wholesome, family-friendly environment.
Yeah, I didn't think that either, but that's what they're promoting. And they have Maverick's helmet in one corner and the piano in the other corner. And they used to have a ton of paraphernalia, but they had a grease fire that took out almost all of the Top Gun paraphernalia they had.
Oh no.
Yeah. But hey, that barbecue still tastes great.
I was gonna say, is the barbecue good?
It's pretty good.
That's
I
what
like
matters.
it. I like it. It's a little overpriced in my opinion, but it's pretty good. It's everything's sticky. That's how you know it's a great barbecue restaurant. Okay, so now they do another flight simulation, and this is where Maverick loses control and Goose dies while trying to eject from the plane. We find out it wasn't Maverick's fault. It wasn't really anyone's fault, but everyone's kind of just acting like this death was like justified. I don't know. This whole portion of the movie just does not, I don't like. I feel like it was written poorly, but I get that they were trying to say like, oh, now Maverick has this emotional debate of should I keep doing it? Should I leave? What should I do?
He's got the yips. He doesn't know if he can't handle it anymore.
Exactly. And so it ends up that Maverick decides to graduate and stay with it. And so Maverick
But never flies a plane again, apparently.
Well,
according to you never see him until
No.
the end fly a plane.
and they also don't tell you how much time has passed. It feels like these are like
Right.
days separated. And I don't think that's true. I think it's been months.
Well, so I thought that I thought they said at the beginning the whole Top Gun program is only 5 weeks long.
Oh, that's it? Oh, man, that's
that
such
was
a
what
short
I
amount
thought
of time.
I remember them saying. I don't know. I'd have to fact check that. But
But then how crazy is this, too, that the moment they're done graduating, they're like, here's orders for half of you to go to sea and fight a bunch of people. Like,
that was the most that was
Right.
the part of this movie I had the biggest problem with, was like how contrived it was that they're like, and all of a sudden you're now fighting a real mission halfway across the world.
yeah, it did not make sense. Like, remember you were in the Indian Ocean or India Ocean, like, at the beginning of the movie, you're going back, people. Like, what? It just felt weird.
See, and to me, that almost made the most sense because they are active duty pilots. I mean,
Yeah.
to get them back out, you graduate and the next day, you should be going back to doing what you were doing. I don't understand the whole reason why Top Gun exists. I mean,
Oh, I do.
Shouldn't you
Actually,
put-
no, I did look it up. So Top Gun exists because in our day and age, by 1986, Americans pilots were becoming too reliant on missile locking. And Top Gun is actually meant to teach you how to dogfight, which is why it's called Top Gun. It's supposed to teach you how to fire the guns accurately, which they rarely do in this movie. It's mostly missile locking. But that's the point of Top Gun, is teaching proper dogfighting technique, not relying on missile locking.
so I go back again to, shouldn't every pilot who's in the Navy or even in the Air Force go through Top Gun to learn how to use their planes properly?
You would think.
You would think
You
so.
would think.
Yeah.
But
They
I don't know.
They did say that though in the the intro to Top Gun scene where they were like, we were so bad in Korea, we had to have Top Gun school, and then we got good in Vietnam.
Yeah, so they kind of brought up the point, but I agree with you. Like, why do just the best pilots get to do this? Why don't
Right.
all the
Right.
pilots get to do
Yeah.
it? It's kind of like if you're like in driving school and it's like, you're pretty good at driving, we'll let you go to secret good driving school, learn how to drive like a Lamborghini or something, It doesn't make sense.
It's almost like they should reverse it and be like, hey, you're the worst pilot. You should go to Top Gun school and learn how to actually fly a plane.
You
Yeah,
should go to
I
bottom
agree.
gun school.
You bottom
so you're not
gun.
the bottom gun anymore.
All right, so they go off to war now, and Maverick is going to be Iceman's wingman, and he ends up saving everyone. Iceman kind of loses it out there. The other guy gets shot down, and Maverick comes in and helps win the day. Whoop-de-doo. Which I always find it. I found it like this happened multiple times in the movie. Oh, our radar's telling us 2 planes. Then all of a sudden it's 4. Then all of a sudden it's 6. Is radar just not reliable? Like, what? This happens so much in the movie.
Yeah, a lot of that artificial escalating of the tension.
Yeah, it was so weird. So weird.
I mean, you remember our computer, or you clearly none of us remember our computers back from 1986. But I remember my computer back from like 1992, and it was not anything
true.
I would consider state of the art.
That's true. I'll give them that. That's fine. I'll give them that. Like if they're flying real close together, maybe it registers as one, and then when they separate, it's like, oh man, they ride single file to hide their numbers, you know? So, and then the end of the movie is Maverick wins the day. Everyone's cheering. There's hugging. And then they're like, what do you want to do with the rest of your life, Maverick? And he's like, I want to be a Top Gun trainer. Because I guess one good mission gives you free access to decide whatever you want to do for the rest of your life.
Right.
Sure, why not? Right.
Open orders.
Yep.
You go
That bothered
around
me.
the world.
Yeah.
I was like, do you only get to serve one mission, then you get to leave the military? Because it's not a halfway bad deal if you're just like, I'm going to sign up and get all this stuff paid for, do one mission, and retire.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works, but that did in this movie. All right, guys, I have some fun facts for you that we brought up a few of these, but let's talk about some other ones here. So I've already told you. Okay, so I was incorrect, actually. The real Top Gun school imposes a $5 fine to anyone who quotes the movie. So it's money that you're losing, which, Tud, I think would be worth it to you. $5, not
I
so
would
bad.
do it every single time.
Yep,
Ted
yep.
would show up
I
with
would
an
sit in
envelope
class.
full of Lincolns for that
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
Just making it rain.
I'd sit in class and just start throwing them up.
Yep. It's like the douchebag jar, but for Top Gun school. Anthony Edwards, the guy who played Goose, is the only actor who didn't vomit while in a fighter jet at some point. So he's got an iron stomach, but not an
fact.
iron neck, as we learned in this movie. So too far. So Val Kilmer didn't want to be in this movie, but was contractually forced to. So he was not happy being in this movie one bit. But, you know, it's what he's known for. This and Batman are like his two biggest roles, I feel like.
But he's the Top Gun.
He
Right,
is
yeah.
the Top Gun.
Do we know why he was contractually forced into this movie?
He was doing another movie for the same production company, and it was part of his contract that he had to be in a second movie or something like that. So they picked this movie for him to be in, and he didn't have a say about it.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I guess even though he didn't want to do it, he kind of lucked into one of the bigger roles in his career, right?
It's true, and I don't know if I'm projecting after learning this, but it did seem like he was kind of phoning in the acting, but also his acting was supposed to be the Iceman. You're not supposed to be overly emotional, so, you know, it could who's to know?
It's true.
Who's
Is
to
it bad
know?
acting, or is it just he's playing unemotional really well?
Yeah, exactly.
He's the
Well,
best
the world may never know.
He's the top actor.
Yeah. So, someone actually did die during the filming of this movie. So one of the stunt pilots, Art Skoll, was killed during the production of the movie. He was doing an S2 camera plane, and it failed to recover from a flat spin and plunged into the Pacific Ocean. I almost wonder, when that happened, was it bad form for them to keep in another death in this movie from a flat spin accident?
Yeah, that's like strangely similar.
Yeah.
Or did they add it?
Right.
Or did they add it because he died in it?
I don't
Was it a
know.
tribute?
Either way seems a little bit like bad form. Like, I don't know. That's a little bit too real life if you know what's going on with it. Riding on the back of this film's success, the U.S. Navy set up recruiting booths in major cinemas to try and catch some of the adrenaline-charged guys leaving the screenings. They had the highest application rate for years in 1986.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it
That
worked.
doesn't surprise me.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty testosterone driven. Let's see. All of Maverick's stunt flying in the film was done by a guy named Scott Altman, who later became an astronaut. I don't
there
know
you go.
for what mission he went on. So the elevator scene where Charlie is wearing a hat and the jacket, this scene was filmed after the movie had already finished, and she's wearing the hat because her hair was a different color. And Tom
Okay.
Cruise's hair is actually a little bit longer, too, because he was already on the set of another movie as well.
I know we're in the middle of fun facts here, but I just thought that back-to-back scene was such a weird, disjointed thing. Because they
Yes.
went from, like, him leaving to take a shower to then him being kind of wet and sweaty in an elevator. It just didn't make sense.
Well, I thought at first it was right after he went to the shower. So he's like,
Sure,
I got to
yeah.
leave and take a shower. And then she followed him. And right after his shower, he's getting in the elevator and she's there. But no, it's like, oh, this is a different day, you realize. It was
I
very
thought I was
weird.
like, did my copy of the movie skip a scene or something? I just thought.
No, that's just how it happened. That's how the movie is. And so Top Gun was the highest grossing film of 1986. So the second highest grossing of 1986 was Crocodile Dundee, which I'm actually surprised that's that high of a grossing film. And then third highest grossing was Platoon. So Tony Scott, the director of this movie, he got fired 3 times from this movie for going over budget.
Wow.
And they kept bringing him back.
I guess it worked
weird.
out if he had the highest grossing film of the year.
Yeah, it did work out, but I don't think they were happy about it at the time. Bryan Adams, REO Speedwagon, Toto, and Judas Priest all turned down doing songs for the movie because they thought it was going to be a flop.
Mistake.
Damn.
Yeah,
Big
And
mistake.
no one's ever heard of those bands ever.
Nope, never.
You know,
They missed
Although
their
Toto
shot.
was kind of a one-hit wonder, I feel like.
yeah, it's true.
Think of how good that soundtrack would be if all those bands were also on there with Kenny Loggins.
Yeah, I think it would be amazing. It would be so
Right.
good.
They wouldn't have had to play the same song for 20 minutes.
Yeah,
That's true.
exactly. All right, so here, I'm going to tell you guys one of I'm going to tell you one of the notes the producers received from the studio at Paramount. They gave him a note, and all it said was, too much flying. I feel like that's kind of the point of the movie.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that why they put in those motorcycle scenes every once in
Right?
a while, where he's like just
I
cruising?
guess.
well, it sounds like they add the volleyball scene at the end. They add
Yes.
the elevator scene at the end. So
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
They had to limit the amount of flying by reshooting some scenes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then my final fun fact here is there's no real Top Gun trophy. Yeah, so you either pass the course or you don't. You don't get a trophy. They don't keep track.
For the toppest gun.
Yeah, you don't get to be the toppest
that's
gun.
sad.
Nope.
I have
So
a fun
I had-
fact about this movie. Oh, you go.
Oh, dang.
No, I had one too. It's not really fun. It's kind of a disturbing fact, but and I don't know if they mentioned his name. I didn't pick up on it, but before the final flight, Tom Cruise is in with the African American gentleman,
Mm-hmm.
and that guy's call sign is Sundown, which I found a little racist.
Yes.
But
that's
I don't
kind
know.
of, I feel like, isn't that like the times too? I mean, things were a little on the nose.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure in the 80s, blackface was still okay. So, I mean, they're not really
That's-
looking for those things.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well-
I because I don't think they said his name. I don't remember. Them
No,
saying
I
his
don't.
name.
But they,
Yeah.
to be fair, they
I
never
have
said
that.
Goose's real name either.
They don't?
No, his real name
Yep.
is never said in the movie once.
Huh. That's interesting. That's a fun fact right there.
Yeah?
No, I have a fun fact. Me and Chris rode a roller coaster that was made for Top Gun in
yes,
Canada's Wonderland in
Canada's
Toronto.
Wonderland.
Oh, I was unaware that there was one in Canada. I knew that there was a theme park in I think Ohio and a theme park in Santa Maria or Santa Clara that had it. I didn't know Canada had one.
Yeah. So, when we went on it, they had already, I think the Paramount licensing deal had expired. So it was no longer called the Top Gun ride, but you could tell where they had taken down all of like the Top Gun paraphernalia.
Did they call it flight deck?
I think they called it like space. It was like a space something.
I see. Yes.
Space
yes.
flight something.
But it still had like the red stripes with like the star on it.
Yeah, exactly.
They were still playing Danger Zone in the queue line.
I've got one fun fact too, and it goes to like one of the central points of the movie where Maverick is known to like buzz towers apparently,
Uh-huh.
and apparently before the movie nobody had ever buzzed the tower before.
But
Oh,
after the
really? That
movie-
wasn't a thing?
Right, so it was like a term made up for the movie that like they had to then go convince like one of the actual pilots who was doing the flying to buzz the tower.
So now is that a thing that they do at Top Gun school all the time?
I don't know any more than that. All I know is that it had never been done before. But the guy who did it, his name was Commander Lloyd Bozo Abel.
Oh, yes, I did hear about Bozo because he was a big part of helping the crew and stuff in this movie.
Yeah, if you watch the credits, like after they name like the first like 10 stars, they then list all like the actual like Navy pilots who did like all the real flying, and their names are actually pretty incredible. They've got like Bozo, Scrum, like they're just random names. You're like, how did you get these names? One guy's name is Texas, but like clearly he's from Texas. That's how he got his name. But it's like some of these names, like you're like, how the hell do you inherit the name Bozo?
Yeah,
was the guy a clown
you're
at some point?
Well, you're like if you're a clown in class or something.
Yeah, and they just give you a name.
Yeah, I want my name to be Cocoa Pebbles.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I don't
racist,
for no reason.
But...
no reason. Just wanted to be Cocoa Pebbles. So I have a quick fan theory about this movie here before we wrap up. And it's actually a theory Quentin Tarantino brings up, his character brings up in Sleep With Me. Now, have you guys seen this movie that Quentin Tarantino's in?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
So his character brings up this theory about Top Gun that it's actually a gay love story between Iceman and Maverick. So
Which movie is this from?
It's in a movie called Sleep With Me. No, I've never heard of it either. I just watched a YouTube video about it and thought it was interesting that they're saying Maverick is torn between his heterosexuality, which is Charlie, and his homosexuality, which is Iceman, and that when Maverick leaves Charlie's house, she realizes that he's into guys, so she dresses up in a jacket and hat like one of the guys, and then the volleyball scene is kind of alluding to that because there's only men in that scene. There's no women watching the movie or the volleyball scene. And that Iceman and Maverick have this like sexual tension bond type thing. I don't know. It's kind of weird to me.
I could see it because it's like he kind of keeps flirting with Charlie, and then at the height of the escalation, he blows her off. Right?
Yeah.
He's like, "Thanks for dinner. I'm gonna leave." You know?
Yeah, and she kind of was coming on to him, and then he was like, "Gotta go."
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then at the end,
I like fan theories.
Yeah, and then at the end, Iceman's like, "You could be my wingman anytime," and then Maverick's like, "Bull, you could be mine," or whatever. It's like
right.
Love. So yeah, that's the only fan theory I had. Is there anything else you guys want to mention about this movie before we wrap up?
Yeah, there's one thing in my notes that we did not cover, and that is that everyone in this movie, every male actor in this movie, is sweaty on screen all of the time. Every single time. Like they will be in an air-conditioned aircraft carrier. I think in the Top Gun universe, air conditioning does not exist. I think that everyone is sweating in classrooms. They're sweating on deck. They're sweating everywhere all the time.
Yeah, it's true, actually. And they're big beads of sweat, too. They're like anime beads of sweat. So it was pretty noticeable.
Yeah, I mean, it was noticeable enough for me to take the notes and say, 30 minutes in, Tom Cruise has been sweating 90% of this movie.
It reminds me of what someone who's never been in the military that's writing what they think the military is like would put in it. Like, oh, yeah, they got to be sweaty all the time.
Yeah, I just like to imagine them in like makeup and then just like misting them with olive oil or something like that.
Yes, that's so funny.
I honestly, when I saw like the guy on like the aircraft carrier and he was sweating, I said to myself, wow, it's kind of unfortunate that they don't cool those rooms down.
Yeah.
But I didn't make it it didn't come up as a note. I was just like, I would be miserable if I was that guy and it was hot every time I went to work.
Right?
Yeah, that would not be a great working environment. No wonder everyone's so mad in this movie all the time.
Always.
That's a good point, though. I did notice that, but I didn't write it down either. So that's a good point to bring up. Sweaty movie. One sweaty movie. All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate you being on. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to have Chris pop his Top Gun cherry.
Yeah, all right.
And
now I got to watch it 150 times in true Chris fashion.
There you go.
Well, now, if only he just starts watching other movies. Hopefully he takes advantage of the service that he got to watch this movie and watches other movies that are there.
It's only when I'm forced to because I'm asked by a friend podcast to be on their podcast. That's the only,
There
that's
you
the
go.
only way I'm going to watch it.
So guys, just let me know what movie you want them to watch next, and we'll get you back on.
There you go.
Not Chappie.
Oh, yeah,
Chappie.
So funny when you guys were talking about Chappie, I 100% had the same experience as Chris. I remember seeing the trailer, getting super excited, saw the movie, was like, eh.
Yeah, it's exactly what Chappie is.
Yep.
Oh, man.
It's great.
Yeah, our podcast, FYI listeners, our podcast is now a Chappie fan cast. So
No, it's not.
You'll
I
have to
refuse.
tune in to find out.
Yeah, find out more about this. Lots of inside jokes going on here. But no, everyone who's listening to our podcast, you should go check out Drinking Alone with Friends. It's a great podcast. I think we've been following each other for quite a while now, so we've had a lot of road and experience together on this podcast journey, as they say. And I think it's a great podcast, so I always promote it and tell people go check it out. As you can hear, you guys are really, really funny. I like the humor. It's great. It's very similar to ours, just you talk about more relevant things than things that came out in the 80s. You guys actually give suggestions of things that you can use today, which is nice.
Everybody can use a little Top Gun in their life. Don't worry.
I guess so, yes. All right, well, I'm going to say check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and check out our YouTube. Also, just check out the show notes. All the ways to support Wreck My Podcast is there. We'll also have a link over to Drinking Alone with Friends to make it easy for you guys to find them. We will be back next week with something. The regular guests will be back. If this is your first time listening, like I said at the top, these aren't the normal co-hosts, but these are friends that also podcast, so we keep it professional. We keep it tight over here. And but next week we'll have something. I don't know what to do next week. Do you guys have like a suggestion of what we should do next week for a topic?
Bananas and pajamas.
Besides that.
Besides
like
bananas and pajamas.
Hot shots.
I've got one, and this should fit right up your alley. Hopefully, I've recently started watching, and there may be an episode or maybe an episode about this, and I may not know. So, if this is it, cut this out.
Yeah.
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, funny you say that because we haven't done an episode on it yet, but everyone on the podcast loves that show, and now it's on Netflix, so it's easy to watch.
There you go.
Because I've recently started watching it, and I'm like, this is even now it's pretty good. Like,
Yeah, we might
I don't know
cover
if you can
that
wreck
one.
it. That's the only issue.
Yeah, we might cover that one, or we might just cover the M. Night Shyamalan Avatar Last Airbender.
Oh, you can wreck that. I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, there'll be a lot to wreck on that one. All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for taking some time out, and I'll hear you guys pretty soon when I listen to you. And then everyone else tune back. And thank you to our listeners. We appreciate you. This is Jordan Cocoa Pebbles Zeilinger signing off.
This is Tud Beer Stud signing off.
This is
Chris the Beer Dad signing off.
this is Obert. I'm too close for missiles. I'm switching to guns. Signing off.
Revving up your engine, listen to a howl and roar, roar. Pick it up. Pick a metal on attention, begging you to touch and go. Highway to the danger zone. We gotta take you right into the danger zone. Heading into twilight, spreading out your wings tonight. Pick it up. She got you jumping off the deck and shoving into overdrive. Highway to the danger zone.
I just know you guys have a lot more sound effects now.
Oh God!
Those are all thanks to Ted.
Don't remind us.
Hey, I didn't bring him onto this episode. I said, hey.
I almost mentioned, I'm like, I better not hear any sound effects over there.
You know, the best part is that, and I know we make reference to it in the show. It takes literally like 15 to 20 minutes every
week
to get it to work. Now that's also because we never just hop on randomly and just attempt to get it all squared away at once. We just do it on a weekly basis.
Yeah. Well, you do what you got to do to get those sound effects in there. They're a sweet, sweet thing.
I think so. I know these two guys. They find it funny but annoying.
I think it's good. I think we could get better sound effects, and also I hate that it takes 40 minutes to get started every week.
So I will say that I think that no longer it will take that much because I'm ready. I'm going to do it right now.
Oh, good one.
Oh, that was a great That was a great thing.
I love that
definitely
sound.
Heard.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't hear that at all?
No. See, this is what we do.
That's why you just add it in
exactly what
post.
happens.
That's why I add most stuff in post. Like for this, all the jingles are going in post.
I do like your jingles though. I like because I was trying to catch up.
There it is.
Oh, there we go.
There it is.
There.
Yeah.
So it was one button. I was close. Did it?
Yeah.
So
It's funny because this Skype I use so infrequently. It was like last chat you had was 2013.
damn.
I'm like, dang, I did not use Skype in a while.
I got some good notes too.
Oh, you guys actually brought notes? You're better than my co-hosts. They never bring notes.
My notes aren't very good, but we have notes.
We don't bring notes to our own podcast, but we came prepared for yours.
Right.
yeah.
Try
Right.
to show off over
Listen,
here.
I watched a new movie this year, so I'm all for it.
All right, here, before we start real quick, I'm just going to slate.
All right, so hopefully that helps me out. All right, so I'll bring us in here.
Wreck my podcast.